This is Rachel, joining you for a shadowy Sunday. Tonight's tale is about a quiet bus ride that turned into something far stranger than it should have been. Keep your lights low, settle in, and listen closely. I never planned to notice him. It was a late bus, the kind that hums along after most people have already tucked themselves in at home. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly, and the windows reflected the tiny, tired world inside. A few passengers, the driver, a stack of empty seats. I chose a back seat, the place where you can watch out and still feel like you're invisible. There was an old man sitting about halfway up the aisle. He didn't look like he wanted company. He wore a worn coat, the kind with soft elbows that have learned the shape of a lifetime of afternoons. He held on to a folded shopping bag and stared out the window, the night passing in slow, indifferent frames. At first, I thought he was muttering to himself. 32. He said, almost under his breath. I assumed he was counting his steps, rehearsing a memory, or reading something on a bus pass I couldn't see. Then he said, 33. It wasn't the voice so much as the way his lips barely moved. The numbers were small and precise, like someone keeping time with a metronome. Every minute or so, another number slipped out. 34, 35. They were not random. They climbed, patient and steady, like a staircase built from quiet syllables. I tried to ignore it. I told myself a bus is filled with odd noises and private rituals. People talk to themselves. They rehearse conversations. They count things. None of that felt worth the attention I was giving it. But attention has a way of finding you, especially when the rest of the world is so deliberately dull. When I shifted a few seats forward, hoping the movement would make him stop, the counting didn't. It continued with the same soft, steady cadence. When I stared at the reflection of the bus window, the kind that shows you and the outside at once, I realized the old man was looking straight at me, not glancing, not wandering eyes. He was fixated, as if my reflection had become a second, more interesting passenger. The numbers kept climbing and keeping time with something I couldn't name. I could hear them as clearly as if he spoke out loud. They threaded through the drone of the bus engine, neat and unshakable. It's easy to let your imagination run wild on nights like that. Shadows in the window become someone peering in. The hum of the engine becomes someone walking beside the bus. But I also know better than to let fear write the script for a whole evening. Still, unease wound itself around the numbers. When I stood to get off, the old man finally turned his head. He smiled, not a menacing smile, just a small, round smile that suggested he had finished keeping some private account. He said, just as I reached the door, 42. He said it out loud this time, clear, ordinary, like he was reading the final line of a grocery list. I walked away with my bag and my keys, and the numbers continued to tumble in my head. Over the next few days, the counting invaded my thoughts like a song that won't leave your head. Was it a code? A countdown? A harmless tick? A message meant only for me? I replayed the bus route in my head, pictures of the old man superimposed with a dozen explanations. The simplest seemed most reasonable. He liked counting. Maybe he was counting buses, or breaths, or years. Maybe 42 had some private significance, an address, an age, a reference to a story I wasn't privy to. Maybe it meant nothing at all beyond what he needed to say to feel present. But I also noticed the way my body remembered the night. My palms stayed a little damp whenever I thought about the way he had looked at the window. My heart would quicken when I imagined the numbers aligning with something unseen. There's a difference between fear and caution. Fear is loud and sudden. Caution is the quiet voice that asks you to pay attention. Listening to that voice is not cowardice, it's self-respect. So I stopped taking that route. I told myself I was being practical. I found another bus, another time. It was a small change, but small changes accumulate. They become patterns. Sometimes protecting yourself is precisely that. Small, deliberate alterations to your routine that keep the world from pressing too close. But the story didn't end with me changing buses. A week later, I learned that the old man had been found sitting on the same bench at the same stop, not late at night this time, but in the afternoon, reading a newspaper. The driver from that night recognized him from the photo someone posted in a neighborhood chat. People started sharing short stories. The old man who counted things. The old man who talked to himself about the color blue. The old man who once taught numbers to children at a community school. Those stories softened something in me. The numbers that had felt like a private code now felt like stitches in someone's life. Small rhythms that made sense only to him. They were a map of memory, not a map to danger. I realized I had been quick to let my imagination sling shadows where there might have been none. There's a moral there without any drama, that the unknown often wears a familiar face. Yet the strange, unresolved way he'd singled me out that night lingered. Why was he looking at me? Why the smile, the precise finality of 42? I never found a satisfying answer. Maybe that's part of the human condition. Some moments live as half questions forever, and part of living is learning to hold them without concluding. What should we learn from a little bus encounter that might have been nothing more than a quirk of a man's routine? First, trust your instincts. If something unsettles you, it deserves your attention. Being careful isn't the same as being fearful. It's respectful of your own story. Second, when you can, look for the human in the strange. The world is stitched together from people with private rhythms, counting, humming, repeating phrases. Those things can be markers of memory, loneliness, habit, or love. Third, don't let a single unexplained moment rewrite all the routes you know. It's fine to change your path for safety, but don't let it build walls around curiosity entirely. The line between protective caution and self-imposed confinement is thin. Aim for balance. Finally, there's accountability in how we choose to see others. When a person's odd behavior alarms us, we can default to suspicion, or we can default to small compassion. Give space, keep our distance if necessary. But also remember, they're a person first. If we have an opportunity to help, to call for aid, or to check in if something seems wrong, that is part of being a neighbor in a modern city. Sometimes the night gives you a riddle with no solution, and you carry it with you like a stone in your pocket. I still picture the old man, the soft coat, the folded bag, the small smile that was neither cruel nor tender. I still replay the counting in my head like a soft, obsolete song. Outside of panic, it taught me to be careful and to be kind, to keep my roots practical and my eyes open, to wonder and to remember that wondering doesn't require an answer. If anything, the story is a reminder. Some encounters are shadows, some are signals, and many are both at once. The difference is how we let them change our steps. If this story left you unsettled, you're not alone. Tap like if it made you glance over your shoulder, share your own eerie encounters in the comments, and subscribe for more Shadowy Sunday stories that walk the line between the ordinary and the unknown. I'm Rachel. Thanks for spending your evening with me.